All right, it's Michael Houghton here again for Play Practice Play. It is lesson 3, tackling and dribbling. So we really are looking to work on the fundamentals. So week 1 we did goal scoring, week 2 we did passing, and week 3 we're now going to be doing dribbling and tackling. So we're looking to do our normal warm up again, keep it interactive, keep it fun. Make sure we get those stretches in as well, but let's keep it as dynamic as possible. We're then going to go into a warm-up game, which is going to be King/Queen of the Ring and Stuck in the Mud. We're then going to go into play 1, which is going to be a numbers and letters 1v1. And then for practice, we're going to do a tackle box, and then we're going to go back to our play 2. We might introduce a 2v2 as well. And again, that's our hockey session, so let's go into some detail about it. This is the usual slide for our warm-up, so as I mentioned, keep it nice and dynamic. Make sure we stretch that back. We then go into our warm-up games. This looks far more complicated than it actually is. Chances are you may have played some of these games already. So basically, the traditional game is King of the Ring, but it can be called Queen of the Ring as well. We would typically have an area. A great area, if you have that side of the pitch, is to use the actual circle, so the hockey circle. Otherwise, just cone off an area. Each player starts with a ball, and the idea is that they've got to dribble their ball while trying to take off another player's ball at the same time. So they kind of dribble, they keep the ball safe, they make a jab tackle or whatever, just try and get somebody else's ball, see if they can knock that ball loose. If a player loses their ball, then they just become a defender. They just go around and actually try and take the balls off. And then the winner is the last player with their ball. So it's really a last person standing scenario. So you could probably play that game for 5 minutes. Sometimes that game can be a little bit difficult if players don't want to dribble. So you've got to kind of get them to dribble. Some players will just go and hide in the corner somewhere. So it's a good game to do for 1 or 2 cycles, but players will get bored after about 5 minutes. So then you can move on to hockey stuck in the mud, which I think is a little bit more enjoyable. Again, it starts similar, so every player starts with a ball, except maybe this time you just pull out a couple of defenders, so just get a couple of people to not start with the ball, and they just become the defenders. The play starts, the attackers just dribble in the area, so they just dribble around. Again, the defenders here are looking to tackle them, remove the ball. Once they're tackled, then the person is stuck in the mud. So they just put their arms out and their legs out, and they basically just stand still. And the idea is to try and encourage the attackers then to dribble the ball between the person who's stuck's leg, and then that frees them. So when they're freed up, you can throw a ball in. And really, this game here, it's either the attackers win or the defenders win. So the defenders will either get everybody stuck in the mud and then they win. Otherwise, the attackers will just keep regenerating people by putting the ball through their legs, and the attackers basically win. So again, just run it for a couple of minutes, change your defenders. You could probably do 3 or 4 iterations of this. So it's quite good just to get everybody warmed up and going. And of course, the warm-up is tied into what we're actually looking to do for the whole session. So we then move into play 1. So this is all about dribbling and tackling. This is core skills. This is week 3. We're starting to get a little bit more serious in some of the fundamental skills that we're getting into. So first week, we kind of had fun with our goal scoring. Second week, we hit our push passing because that's so important. And third week now, we're just getting into our core dribbling and our tackling. So we're going to be doing a game of numbers and letters. You've probably already seen this in some version or another. We basically split the teams into 2. The nice thing about this one is you don't actually need bibs. You just have one team on one end and the other team on another. You can either do numbers and letters, or if you've got an uneven number, you can actually just put the players in a line. This is actually better if you have an uneven number. I'll show why in the demonstration, and I'll move over. So move over to the demo now. So there's 2 different versions. It depends if you have a goalkeeper or not to which one you want. You can also do this with 2 goalkeepers. I'll leave it to you guys if you have 2 goalkeepers to expand how you can do this. The left side here is a kind of traditional setup. I've done it here assuming an odd even number. So I've got 4 players here and 5 players here. If you do numbers and letters, they might just line up or stand on a cone here, and you might give A, B, C, D here, 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and then every time you're just going to give a combination B2, A3, D1, and those players will enter. In this case, they can just line up if there's an uneven number. Alternatively, you could always overload one side, so have 6 here and 4 here if you wanted to, for example, or just switch players at some point. The only reason we like to have an odd number is because then the players will have different opposition to go against, not always the same people. The idea is this one is really simple. Basically, you blow your whistle, or in the case of numbers and letters, you might just say the combination. Once the player hears it, the first person will run around this cone, and they're going to run into the ball. At the same time, this person's going to be doing the same. They're going to be running for the ball. And one of the players will pick up the ball, and then they just need to beat the other player and do a controlled dribble over the line. So really the big thing that you're going to be stressing here is they don't just whack the ball, which you're going to find a lot of the players will just get to the ball, just going to whack it. We don't want them to do that. We want them to get the ball, try and beat the player somehow. So maybe they dribble the ball this way around to the player and they've controlled the ball over the line. If they do that, then that's 1 point for this team, and that's how this game is scored. So if a player gets the ball, they beat the player and control the ball over the line through a controlled dribble, then that's a point to that team, and you basically just go about it that way. With the goalkeeper, it gets a little bit more fun. So this goalie is going to represent both teams. Again, I mentioned you could have multiple goals here, or you could have maybe goals here if you have multiple goalkeepers or something like that. You could add a shot element in once they've gone through the cones. In this case, I've lined the teams up at this end rather than here, so there's no interference. This time, again, it's the same concept. You blow your whistle and they go. So the players are going to run in, try and get the ball. What will happen when they're running in is one will get there first, the other will get in a defensive position, which is really, really nice because that's really realistic of how hockey can be as well. Once one of the players gets the ball, we need to encourage them to dribble through these wide channels here. All right, so this is kind of a dead end here. We don't go through this channel here. So let's say this player picks the ball up. They're going to make a dribble through here. This player might come through and shadow them, which is going to be really good. They could introduce some channeling there, which we're coming up in some later lessons, right? So they might start to channel them. Maybe this player then has to beat the player, and then they take a shot at the goalkeeper. All right, so we've got this opportunity for the player to make decisions here. They can choose which cone they're going to go around, but they have to go around this in some form of another, and then they're going to be able to have a shot here. So again, this is when we've got a goalkeeper. We can introduce this. If you want to, you can also introduce this style from this style here, maybe as your second play, if you want to expand it to a shot. If they're getting bored of just doing this, you would bring a shot into it. And look, it should be noted for all of these lesson plans, these can be expanded. A lot of the time, I'm just giving fundamental ideas, and you'll find that when you're actually in there and you've got your kids and they're doing it, you can expand it as needed. So just do whatever needs to be done from that point of view. So we'll go back to the presentation. So that's play one. Very, very simple numbers and letters, or just some variation of that with one-on-one dribbling and controlled ball over a line. For practice two, I've got a different setup for this, a nice cleaner setup. This is just a very simple tackle box. Now you can set up multiples of these boxes depending on how many players you have. Ideally, you shouldn't have more than 3 or 4 players per station. So if you've got 12 players, you could have 3 different tackle boxes with a defender in, and all you're looking to do is just change your defender out every few minutes. The yellow here is the ball. So we'd have our players in this case just lined up here. And all that we're going to do here is we're trying to get the player with the ball to get their ball through to these 2 cones here in some sort of controlled fashion. So anywhere between here and here, they're trying to get through. And to do that, they're literally just going to get the ball and they're just going to dribble around and just try and beat the defender and just dribble through. So again, just watch out for a couple of the common things that happen here. You get a player come through and just whack it down there. We don't want to see them whacking it. The other one is that they'll just dribble outside the cone. We don't want to see them doing that either. I would generally introduce multiple, probably 3 different techniques to try and get them around to beat the defender. The easiest one is just going to be your drag right. Again, do I have a hockey stick? I do. 1 second. It's a pretty old stick, but you drag right. You're just looking to them to get them to drag right. So bring the ball up, drag right, and go around the defender. I'll demonstrate that on the screen. So they come up, they drag the ball right, and they go around the defender's weak side. All right, so the defender will be here, their stick will be here, right? And you're basically just going around that side, and that's a great way. Just a right side drag of the ball with the dribble is a great technique. It's one I'd always be encouraging players to learn. The second one is that we just get them to maybe just do a small little bobble over the stick, or maybe just beat their stick. So you've got your defender here. The player comes up. They're just going to look, even maybe just to push the ball through, a small little push, maybe raise the ball a little bit if it's an older group. Just do something to get the ball through with a nice controlled dribble. And then the player runs around, grabs the ball at the other side, and away they go. So that's the next one there. And the third one, and this is great if you can get, particularly like young kids, I find even with senior players, getting them to do this is quite difficult. but just encourage them just to push the ball into the foot. So you've got your player here, the player comes in, maybe moves to the left slightly, and boom, just pops the ball into the foot. And if they do that, let's encourage that as a win. All right, so let's say they can either dribble it through or they can look to get a free from the defender, because that's, again, one-on-one. If you're in that situation with a one-on-one, and let's say you've just received a long pass, right? So you've got your ball here, you've just received a long pass from your defender straight up to your attacker, right? And here, and there's one defender to beat. They come in and they maybe win a short corner here, or they've won a free inside the 25. So they've completely changed the dynamic of that game. So we should be encouraging our players in a one-on-one situation, particularly if this is a strong defender, that maybe the best outcome here is that we just win the free and we move on. So that's a tackle box. Again, these drills are designed to be fairly quick. The kids shouldn't be getting bored because it's only 12.5 minutes. So we run through a few of those. Everybody can have a go at being defending. I should just note here that safety is first here. So when we're encouraging the players to tackle, let's make sure that they keep the sticks ideally on the ground at all times. They should be tackling low anyway. Otherwise, they're just going to be stick tackling and they're just going to be giving frees away. So let's encourage the kids from a technical point of view, or any even senior players for that matter, to be nice and low, stick on the ground, sliding the stick in nice and low, entering in the right position, all of that sort of stuff. This isn't just about tackling, it's also about channeling a little bit as well. So encourage that they don't get too caught, they don't dive in too quickly, all of those things. From a one-on-one point of view, it is very difficult to beat a defender, all right? So encourage your players. This is difficult, all right? You're going to find some players are going to be better at others, but if they can get through even 1 in 3 or 4, then they've actually done really well. So encourage your players as best you can. This isn't something that happens that often in the game, because in a game we always have an option to pass, or we try to always give ourselves an option to pass, but it's a great skill to have if you can do it. But yeah, just keep out for safety first, and please make sure your defenders have a gum shield and shin pads when they go into this, because otherwise there will be injuries from it. This can get a little bit out of hand if it's not controlled. We then go back into our numbers and letters at the end. So play 2, we go back into our numbers and letters. I mentioned it earlier, we can add in some goals. We can change this slightly. I think as well, the other one that we can introduce is we can start to introduce a 2v2 situation here towards the end. So instead of doing one-on-one or calling, if you're doing numbers and letters, maybe you go A1, B2. So we actually call 2 players from each team this time. So we give the option this time for them to throw a pass in if they want to. There's still going to be a lot of dribbling there anyway, but now they've at least got the option. So mix it up as you need to. Feel the energy from your group. If they're starting to get bored or it's getting a little bit stale, then change it. And this one too, we do have 15 minutes. So if you want to go into a game for, say, the last 7.5 minutes, because we haven't done an actual game in this lesson, then that's totally fine as well. So just, apply what you need to make the lesson fun, and adjust it. And if we do go into that game at the end, hopefully we see some of the principles that we've taught from this lesson. Again, I will be posting 14 lesson plans. This is number 3, but I'll be doing 14 over the next 14 weeks. So please do subscribe just to keep in touch, and I look forward to seeing you on the next lesson.